Hi! So this year for the holidays, I decided I wanted to do something really special for the people in my life, and that means I'm going to hand make gifts for everyone. Now, I only really know crochet, punch needle, and like digital design and illustration, so that's what I'm going to be doing. And some projects are going to be super small, like maybe take 2 hours, and then other projects are going to take days or weeks, or potentially kill me trying to do it in a month. By the way, did I mention that I have a month? 25 days to be exact. My deadline is Christmas Eve. This is basically poor time management masquerading as a challenge. So we don't have a lot of time. Let's just jump into it. So here's a list of all the projects that I plan on doing during this challenge. As you can see, there are 13 listed here and there are only 12 in the thumbnail. There's a reason for that, but we'll get to that later. For the first day, I started off by working on something that was like a fun little craft. It wasn't necessarily related to the challenge per se. I used to make these chain garlands as a kid and I really like them, and I thought it would also be a fun way to keep track of my progress. I realized that the paper I was using was way too heavy and, well, so instead I cozied up and I got started on my first official project, which is to make a cherry plush out of crochet. The next day was spent on crochet, and more crochet. I got to a pretty good point by the end of the day where I was able to stuff the cherries, and as I was getting to the end, I realized that I had only used one skein, even though I bought 2 for this project, and I was down to the wire with how much I had left. Like, I literally had this much left. But I was determined not to break open the second one. I did both cherries with just one skein. The next day, I ended up going to a craft market with my mom so we could get some Christmas gifts. It was a nice day, and I just lived my life and enjoyed the day and didn't really do any crafting that day. And Sunday was very much the same thing. But Monday, it was time to get back to work. So I started off the day by cleaning off my workspace and getting ready for the week ahead. On this day, I wanted to begin working on my stocking project. I saw these really cool punch needle stockings on Pinterest, and I wanted to create my own version of them. I think what I struggled with the most was finding a way to simplify the designs. My boyfriend wanted the classic little red truck hauling a Christmas tree. For mine, I wanted to do some like 50s retro ornaments, but as I kept going, I realized that I was really struggling with this. It just felt a little bit out of my range at the moment. So I decided to put this project on hold and start on another project, which was working on a scarf for my boyfriend's grandma. This project was really cool because it taught me some new stitches. It basically alternates between a half double crochet and I believe it's called a treble crochet. As you can see, to do that stitch, I yarned over 5 times, pulled a loop out, and then would yarn over and pull through 2 and repeat that basically until I had 1 loop left on the hook. It was really difficult to get my tension down right. I still struggled with it even till the end of the project, but I still think it turned out pretty well. I don't know, it was fun. It was fun to learn something new. And by the way, all the patterns and everything that I mentioned will be linked in the description down below. The next day, I started by setting up my new printer, which was my Christmas gift from my family. I'm so grateful that they got me this because it's something that I've been wanting for a while. I've been trying to take my art practice really seriously lately. I've been doing a lot of digital illustration, posting it on my art Instagram, and I've been doing it through Procreate. It's been a lot of fun. I've been experimenting with my style, seeing what fits. And maybe one day, I don't know, I'll sell my art prints or something. It's definitely a goal of mine. I started setting up my printer and I was surprised how much ink the printer actually used for the first fill up. People say that this ink lasts you for a while. That's why I got the printer, so we'll see. And then I basically finished up my ornament design that I had been working on for a while. It's a punch needle cowboy boot, so I was just getting the design down, and then I spent the night basically just working on more crochet. It is now Wednesday, December 6th, which means we are over a quarter of the way through this challenge, which is exciting, but also scary because I've been working on a lot of stuff and I feel like I've been really busy, but I haven't finished something yet, at least not something in like the time frame of this like challenge. And I've been referring to it as a challenge because this is really a challenge. Like, this is definitely not like a normal amount of day-to-day crafting, especially like when you work and stuff like that. It's not realistic, but for the purposes of this challenge, I'm gonna need to step it up a little bit. And honestly, just thinking about like my friends and my family and everyone I love getting these gifts, that's what's keeping me going through this. Like, I just got the sweetest text from my friend, and I don't know, it just like reminded me of why I'm doing this, you know? That's what's keeping me going. It's just the fact that I know that I'm making stuff, really cool stuff that I think, you know, for each person, I think they're gonna like it a lot. So just some like thoughts and reflections on like where I'm at and like the projects I've been focusing on and stuff. So I noticed I've been gravitating a lot towards the crochet projects because like crochet is probably, out of all the gifts that I've set up for myself, crochet is where I have the highest skill level. I noticed I've definitely been avoiding punch needle. To be realistic, I may have gotten myself in over my head with the amount of punch needle projects that I set up for myself, given that I've literally done one punch needle project my whole life and I never even finished it. I mean, it's okay from like a distance, but up close, it's definitely not that refined. I know it's gonna be like a big learning curve for me to do punch needle, and I think that's what I'm avoiding. Like with crochet, if I'm like following a pattern like I did for the cherries or the scarf and something kind of feels off to me, or I want it to look a slightly different way, I have enough skills at this point to where I can improvise and kind of try something different. It's just that I think I'm afraid that when I do these punch needle things, they're not going to be as good as I've pictured in my head because I haven't done that many yet. I haven't practiced enough. So I think my focus for today, this afternoon, evening, is to get over some of my discomfort with punch needle. Just start. I'm thinking I can realistically get done my little ornament prototype today. Also, just, I have so many things started and I haven't finished anything yet, and I think it's gonna feel really good and I'm gonna feel really motivated if I can cross one thing off the list. I think I'm gonna try to finish the cherry plush today because that one is on a bit of a time crunch. It's from my friend Nicole and I have to ship it out of state to her. So I wanna make sure I get that done in time. So that's gonna be my priority today. Finish the little cherry plush and start working on some punch needle. Starting off with the punch needle ornament, I got my design traced onto the monk's cloth, which is the fabric that you use in punch needle. From the videos I've seen, I think you're probably supposed to trace the design when it's already on the hoop or already stretched out so that the design doesn't get all warped. And that was definitely an issue that I had here. The boot became a lot wider because I ended up putting it on the embroidery hoop after I'd already traced the design. But for me, this was just the easiest way to do it. So just based on YouTube videos that I've seen, this is kind of how I think you're supposed to finish it. I know there's probably a much more refined, much more perfected way to finish it off, but the easiest way for me was to just get some fabric glue and glue it on the back and fold over the margin that I had left over of monk's cloth onto the fabric glue. I traced out the boot design in a slightly smaller size on some felt, and I went ahead and attached that to the back. With that finished, I decided to move on to finishing the cherries like I had promised myself. So I finished that up and bam, I had some pretty cool looking cherry plush. I have to say, I think I want to make something like this for myself because it's pretty damn cool. But my struggle had just begun. I finally had all the yarn that I needed in the mail, and I was about to begin the biggest crochet project I have ever done, and that is a granny square blanket. And in the beginning, I had a really good time with this project. It was a lot of fun just making granny squares. I'd actually never made a granny square before. It builds on a lot of foundational crochet stuff, so if you know some crochet, a granny square is really not that hard. But just as I was getting the hang of things, tragedy struck. I was sick. So I used my sick time as a good opportunity to get caught up on granny squares. And that was basically all I did every day for days. But it was finally time to start another project, a project that I desperately needed to start, which was the skateboard rug. I used a really cheap canvas that I got from Michael's, and I tore the cloth off to use it as a frame. I have to say, it does really help to have a second person there helping you to stretch the cloth along the frame, because it is very hard to hold down the monk's cloth and to use the staple gun at the same time. That night, I ended up tracing out the design for it, but I didn't start just yet. I actually began the project the next day, and I was very nervous to start, but once I got into it, it was really fun. Everything I read said you're supposed to trace the outline first and then circle inwards from there, so that's what I did, and I feel like I was making pretty good progress that day, even though I still had a lot to do. The next day was a Saturday, and I decided to take it kind of easy. I worked on this little frog basket for my best friend. I also went ahead and started building all the little details for the basket, like the eyes of the frog. As you can see, Duncan does not know how to jump up on the couch. It takes him 20 tries. Finally, the next night, I finished the punch needle rug. I didn't film it because I was just so stressed, but as you can see, I think my punching technique got a lot better as I went through. Now, I didn't really know what I was doing here trying to finish it off. I basically just went ahead and did what I did for the ornament, which was add a 1-inch margin, and I had this old cloth from a previous project sitting around, so I used that as a backing to keep my project secure. I did kind of the same thing I did with the ornament, so I'll just let the footage play. I ended up finishing the project that night, and the next day it was off to the post office. Kinda, but that's a story for tomorrow. It is now, what is it? I don't know. What, Tuesday? Tuesday, the 19th. It's Tuesday the 19th. I thought I would do another check-in because we're getting down to the wire here. We've got less than a week till Christmas. I've got, like 5 days to finish all my projects? Things are getting tight. I'm feeling the pressure, man. I'm feeling very stressed, very overwhelmed with everything I've got going on. I have just been crocheting away, making granny squares all day long. I want to talk a little bit about the process of shipping things out of state. Looking back at that experience, honestly, like, it was embarrassing. Planning and better packing would have really helped me out. So yesterday I had to rush to finish the rug because I wanted to make sure that it was done in time to get shipped. The way I packed it could have been better. I was focused on like wrapping the presents and making them look really cute and presentable. So that's why I had the presents individually wrapped in there inside their own boxes. But I think that I probably could have fit everything into the box that the cherry was packed in, and that probably would have cut my shipping costs down like probably in half. Lesson learned, I'm never doing that again, and if I am, I'm giving myself like 2 weeks. But those are done, and it's nice to be able to cross that off the list because those were kind of like bigger projects, I would say. So yeah, I feel like the last few days, probably just because I was sick and I wasn't getting a lot of sleep, I felt like very delusional. And today's like the first day I feel like I've like awoken out of that like funk and I feel like a normal person again. I've got about 20 something of these left to do. So that's a little bit stressful given that we've got like 5 days or so left. So I'm not worried about finishing any of the other projects. I'm only worried about finishing this. My kind of default like last minute, I don't finish it in time plan is basically to at least have it all sewn together, and then I could add like the border. I wanted to add like a little white scallop border That and then sewing in all the ends I could probably do after Christmas, just take it back from my grandma and then give it back to her. The rest of the week is probably gonna be very chaotic, so it's gonna be a good time. So anyways, let's get back to work. That night I began a little mini rug for my brother. He goes to Texas A&M, so I figured I would make him a cute little rug. And then right as I finished drawing the design and started punching, I realized that I had done the design the wrong way. When you want the fluffy loops and not the embroidery part of the punch needle to show, you have to do your design inverse. So I went ahead and traced the design on the back side of the monk's cloth, and thankfully I caught that early enough that it wasn't too much of a hassle. The next day was spent just working on this rug, making more progress, and as you can see, this is kind of how I actually held the rug. I was only really holding it up that way for the camera angle. The next day I went to my mom's to bake, and this was kind of like a little bit of a day off. I mean, I still did some crafting, but it was a lot of fun just getting in the Christmas spirit, baking cookies. But part of the reason I did go over here was to work on my boyfriend's project. I'm making him a little orange plush, similar to the cherry that I made for my friend. He's really obsessed with those little mini oranges, and that's what I did all night. Now the next few days were kind of rough because I had friends in town that I wanted to see, so I didn't really get a ton done. I thankfully finished up this little frog basket for my friend, and she really liked it, but it was now crunch time. I had a bunch of little mini projects to finish up, like this little mug cozy for my boyfriend's mom. Then I had to finish up the final touches on the scarf for my boyfriend's grandma. I basically just had to add some tassels in and weave in the ends. It was a lot of fun finishing these off. I just wish that I wasn't so rushed. The next project I had to work on was an armchair caddy for my grandpa. It was for him to hold his remotes or his phone, whatever he wants. I had a bunch of these smaller projects and they didn't take terribly long, but it was just the sheer amount of them, having to do them on Christmas Eve, that was really stressful. As you can see, I didn't even change clothes from the day before. I was just spending the entire day crafting. With my final punch needle projects, I decided to make my life a little bit easier, and I just went ahead and added a felt backing and used fabric glue to secure them on there. And we don't talk about the Cowboys coaster, okay? It was not my finest work, but you know what? It is there, it exists. Well, Christmas is finally here. It's the morning of, I have gotten no sleep, and I finished every project but the granny square blanket. And honestly, I'm not too pressed about not finishing it, because I kind of knew with that project that the expectations were just way too high, and I know that the gesture probably means more to people than the finished product. And it'll give me time to finish it beautifully and to make something that I'm really proud of rather than just rushing through. So I'm probably just going to throw a bunch of granny squares in a box to give to my grandma, and I'm sure seeing 96 granny squares will be a shock in and of itself. Anyways, I'm going to wrap up here. I'm very tired. Hopefully maybe we'll do an update with the granny square blanket. I'd love to update y'all on how that goes. But for now, just enjoy the rest of your holidays and be safe out there, and wishing you the best in the new year.